This is the Weekly Set, the official podcast of TheTotalScreen.com. Episode 180, recorded November 3rd, 2018. Hello everybody and welcome to The Weekly Set, the official podcast of The Total Screen. My name is Tyson, I am your host, and joining me today as always is my partner in crime here at The Total Screen, William Rohrig.
Hello.
So today we are going to be talking, as usual, about The Good Place. This time, Season 3, episode, I believe we're on episode Y now, of the Jeremy Bearimy scale.
Oh.
A Fractured Inheritance. But before that, we're going to go over a few news stories, so let's just kind of jump right into that. So first off, a new trailer came out, the first kind of like real kind of more detailed trailer for True Detective Season 3. So they had released one before at Comic-Con, but it was kind of vague about what was going on. Now we kind of have more of an idea of the mystery that's going on. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned to me, like, before I watched it, that it kind of has more of a True Detective Season 1 vibe. And I think the reason why is because they're playing with time again. Like, they're setting it kind of, like, True Detective Season 2 was just kind of like detective story just set in Los Angeles or something. Like, there wasn't anything kind of different about it.
Right.
Whereas, like, this kind of, like, feels like it's in an era, like, in a period, you know?
Right.
So this season stars Mahershala Ali from Luke Cage Season 1 and Stephen Dorff from Blade. They're the detectives in this season. So, do you remember, like, after Season 1, when, like, it was like a meme on Twitter where people were just posting random pictures of two actors together and just writing, like, True Detective Season 2?
Oh, yeah. This is two random actors together, right?
Yeah. So. Well, you got two kind of, you have an actor that was kind of like an it boy for a while in the past, and you have
Stephen
an actor.
Dorff. Now, there's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
Yeah, he's kind of like faded away.
It's funny because, like, I was watching clips from, like, the first Blade movie and, like, literally wondering what the hell happened to Stephen Dorff. and then he just shows up out of nowhere in True Detective. So
I think the last cool. I saw him was doing like e-cigarette commercials. But yeah, like that was pre-vaping, pre-vape culture.
Yeah, pre-vape culture.
And Ali, of course, is in Luke Cage Season 1. He was the villain that got killed off before they replaced him with a cartoon character.
Now, he's a rising star, I think, right?
Yeah, not only did he have kind of a breakout role with Luke Cage Season 1, where he got a lot of attention for that, but even before that, he was in House of Cards, and then he was in Moonlight, which got a lot of attention.
Yeah, he was, yeah.
So, yeah, that's True Detective Season 3. It's looking like it's pretty good. Like, it's got more of this kind of focus on, like, some kind of a child killer again, which is kind of like a more personal, like, savage kind of story than, like, what Season 2 had. Season 2 is just kind of unbalanced. I think part of that also is that with Season 2, they were just trying to make every character like Russ Cole.
Oh, really? I didn't watch Season 2, but that sounds annoying.
They're like, Matthew McConaughey's character was the big hit of Season 1, so let's just make every character Russ Cole.
Because that works and makes sense. Like, Russ worked because he was unique.
Yeah.
If every character in that goddamn season was Matthew McConaughey, it would not have been good.
Yeah, all you had time for is every character would show up, one would show up and go, all right. Yeah. And then another one showed up and said, all right. And then another one showed up, all right. It's like they didn't even have time for any dialogue or story. Every character was Matthew McConaughey.
Yep.
So next story we have is we got to see our first look of Henry Cavill as Geralt of Rivia in the Witcher series on Netflix. This spawned a just tidal wave of memes. Did you see any of those? The memes that have been going around?
No, I saw like one compared them to Viserys from Game of Thrones, which is totally like accurate because he does look like Viserys. A lot of people were comparing him to Orlando Bloom as Legolas, which I think.
Yeah, people were just posting pictures of
that's like
any actor with like a bad wig.
Yeah.
And then writing like, excited to see Henry Cavill as Geralt in The Witcher, and then they'd post it below what's his name who played Raiden in the Mortal Kombat movie?
Oh, jeez.
And like
he doesn't even look like Raiden. Come on.
No, but if you saw the Mortal Kombat movie, Raiden had like that like silver
I know
hair.
he had that silver. Yeah, I know.
So it's just like any movie where some character is wearing like a bad silver wig. Like I even saw one. There's this parody thing they did where it was like Kit Harington from Game of Thrones, like auditioning for other characters on Game of Thrones, and one of them, like this was like a parody video that had gone up like a while ago, and one of them was like him dressed up as Daenerys. And so like I saw somebody post a picture of Jon Snow dressed like Daenerys that said, check out Henry Cavill as Geralt of Rivia in The Witcher.
Oh, jeez. Oh, man.
It's an early test. It was kind of a bad idea to show it. Some people are freaking out about the beard. It should be noted that this is not an adaptation of the video game. This is an adaptation of the novels. And the video game takes place after the novels.
People
so like the scar on his face, the beard, all of that is from later. Yeah. That's not in the book.
Expecting him to look like the video game.
Yeah.
They don't realize that this is not based on a video game.
I've seen other things too. There was one person was complaining about there was a new casting made and the actress wasn't a redhead, and they were complaining because the character was a redhead in the game. And then somebody was pointing out, yeah, but in the book she's a brunette.
Yeah.
So where was your outrage when they changed the book for the video game, That's the problem though, is that people, they don't see this as an adaptation of the books. They see it as an adaptation of the video games. It doesn't matter how much they say it's an adaptation of the books. They don't read that far. They just see The Witcher. It's an adaptation, ... And they don't see the of the book part. So that's kind of, I think, the problem we're going to be seeing with this series is we're going to have people going like, Henry Cavill's too young. Why doesn't he have the scar on his face? Why doesn't he have the beard?
Yeah,
why is this other character so much younger? Why are they talking about this event, or why aren't they talking about this event that hasn't happened yet? It's like, well, because this all takes place before the games. This is the prequel to the games, you could say.
Oh, it's just based on the books.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, what were your thoughts of the short screen test footage?
I mean, it looked like Geralt, so I don't know. I mean, yeah, it looked rough, but I'm sure it'll be fixed up by time.
Hopefully,
I didn't really have a strong reaction. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, get pissed or something? I don't care.
I wasn't annoyed by any kind of changes made or anything like that. I think the one thing that kind of made me go like a little like, ugh, was like, what was up with this pleather outfit? It looked like it was made out of like an old couch from the 90s.
I'm gonna have to, I'm reserving judgment until like actually see it in action,
Yeah, it'll be like a CG outfit, like Spider-Man's outfit in Infinity War.
Yeah.
They'll CG the outfit onto him. Yeah, and I hope it's not some cheap. That was the one thing that got to me, was that I thought the outfit looked a little cheesy. The wig looked a little obvious, but I mean, that's kind of always the case. If the actor doesn't grow their actual hair out, it's going to look like a wig, because that's what it is.
At least they didn't have to CGI off his mustache.
Yeah. And give him like this weird, like long upper lip,
Yeah.
But yeah, so we'll have to see what happens with that. There's a lot of people who are concerned with some of the the way people have been talking about the show behind the scenes, in the sense of like, you know, the showrunner making comments that's, you know, which on the surface sound like they're just like good, like, oh, you know, we're going to do some, you know, colorblind casting on this character. We're going to go for diversity on this character. And what people are worried about is just, you know, are they just doing this for the sake of doing it, or are they doing it because they just want to cast it right, you know?
Right.
So it's already kind of courting a bit of controversy under those aspects. So I knew the second they showed anything from it, unless it was like a full-blown trailer that just blew everybody away, it was going to get people like basically pulling out their pitchforks.
Right, yeah.
Because
totally.
they already wanted to be pulling out their pitchforks. But yeah, so that's Henry Cavill as Geralt in The Witcher. Next story we have up is Castlevania Season 3 was ordered at Netflix. 10 episode order, so the episode count keeps climbing. By the time they reach, you know, Symphony of the Night material, it'll be like 70 episodes a season.
Yeah. Good news. If you like Castlevania, there's going to be more of it.
There was an interview, by the way, I don't know if you saw this at all, with, there's been a lot of actually kind of interviews recently with Adi Shankar, who's the executive producer of the Castlevania series on Netflix. And he's kind of, you know, gotten attention for himself. We mentioned last week the story about the Apu thing. That was like, he was connected to that. And then, he's been doing some more interviews, and somebody had brought up what Castlevania series they cover. And he mentioned 2 series that we had previously talked about as wanting them to adapt in this, which is Symphony of the Night. And he also mentioned, he didn't mention the game specifically, but he mentioned the characters by name from Aria of Sorrow.
Nice.
So he seemed interested in both of those. So Symphony of the Night, he was mainly addressing, saying that when people from his generation think of Castlevania, they think of Symphony of the Night. And so obviously that's something that he's thinking about when he does the show, and a storyline he'd want to cover. And then he mentioned...
Although if he does Symphony of the Night, he has to do like Rondo of Blood first, because Rondo of Blood is like the direct prequel, and like the events of Symphony of the Night happen directly from the events of Rondo of Blood.
It all depends on how he wants to handle it, you know,
yeah.
how much he wants to change.
Because like the game is like Rondo of Blood ends with like Richter defeating Dracula, and then the beginning of Symphony of the Night begins by replaying that fight, and then it goes into a dialogue that says like after that fight Dracula was defeated, but then Richter disappears and Maria goes to find him, and then Castlevania, Dracula's castle reappears, and Alucard awakens. And
yeah.
so the whole storyline was like tied to, if you don't have that context, if you don't know who the fuck Richter is or anything,
you don't need that full game story to get that context, though.
Yeah, that's true.
You could literally start it with how it starts in Symphony of the Night, with Richter beating Dracula and then disappearing, and like basically everything that you just said, they could cover in like 10 minutes.
True.
And sum up that context. So I don't know what their plan would be with it, though. Like, I'm not saying that they would jump right into Symphony of the Night. He actually seemed more interested in like the Aria of Sorrow storyline.
Right.
I think that's what he wants to work towards. Like, I don't think he wants to jump right into that. But yeah, so that's Castlevania Season 3 ordered at Netflix. I think they're going to work their way, hopefully, as long as they remain in production and don't, you know, get canceled, like Netflix has been going on a recent canceling binge. As long as that doesn't happen to the series, I imagine they're just going to try to work their way through all of the stories.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens.
Next up, the Game of Thrones spinoff is now officially titled The Long Night.
And Watts is a big name attached to it.
Yeah, she's going to be one of the leads. Another lead is going to be played by Josh Whitehouse, who's a British actor who's just kind of unknown. He's in the Poldark series. Unless you watch a lot of British TV, you wouldn't know who he is. But, you know, I mean, it's Game of Thrones and British actors. That's kind of, they go hand in hand, you know? But Naomi Watts is the one that people know more of. She, I believe last appeared, she was in the new Twin Peaks revival, where she played Dougie's wife. But yeah, the other actor is Josh Whitehouse from Poldark, if you've seen that series. But they're the two leads so far. There's probably going to be more leads. If it's like the original Game of Thrones series, it's an ensemble piece. It doesn't follow like a single character. And I don't believe that they're going to try to do something different for the spinoff. They're still going to be doing it as an ensemble piece. But yeah, so who do you think Naomi Watts is going to play? I mean, she's blonde, so the big things are going to be, is she going to be a Targaryen?
She's a socialite. That's all they said. She's a socialite who hiding a dark secret.
Yeah, that could be a Targaryen, because
so I was talking to a friend about this, and I was reading it to him, and I was like, she's a socialite with dark secret, and he's like, oh, she's having sex with her brother. Oh, if she's a Targaryen, then it's like, holy fuck, oh shit.
Well, having sex with her brother wouldn't be a dark secret for the Targaryen.
No, I know. That's why I said, holy fuck, no shit.
I think there's a good chance she could be a Targaryen. This series takes place, it's the Long Night. That's the event. That's when the White Walkers first appeared in Westeros. So it has to deal with like the first men trying to stave them off, going to war, and eventually teaming up with the Children of the Forest, who we know created the White Walkers in order to fend them off. And that was the creation of the Wall, was to stop them. So that's kind of the events of where the series is taking place. The Targaryens were not in Westeros then, but that doesn't mean that the Targaryens aren't going to be in the series, because I mean, the original series, Game of Thrones, already crossed over to Essos and back to Westeros and back and forth. So it could very well take place also at the same time in Essos. And if it does, around that time in the mythology for Game of Thrones was also close to like the doom of Valyria, when like Valyria basically, we've seen Valyria in the regular Game of Thrones series, and it's where like all those people with that disease, the dragon scale disease, were like when they were attacking Tyrion and Jorah in the boat, when they were going through the ruins of that city, that was Valyria. So it could very well be the doom of Valyria, what caused that to happen in Valyria. And so her having a dark secret could be that there was a Targaryen character who predicted the doom of Valyria. So it could be that. We'll have to see what they end up doing with it. That would make sense. Another thing would make sense. There's another family that are famously blonde, which is the Lannisters.
Yeah.
So that could be another one.
But who says Naomi Watts is going to be blonde? She's an actress. She can dye her hair.
She's pretty fair skinned, so it's like it would kind of, you'd think that would be most likely. I mean, it's,
And we're making assumptions based on like her actual appearance.
Well, yeah, obviously it's not a sure thing, but it's more likely than not. I'd say the fact that she's blonde makes it more likely that her character's blonde than that she's not blonde.
I would just say that we're making assumptions. Like,
obviously.
It needs to be pointed out.
Anything outside of the official description is going to be an assumption.
Yeah.
Anything. So anything anybody says outside of the official description is an assumption. We're just but that's the point, is we're guessing what her character could be. I think Targaryen's the obvious one. Lannister it could be as well. She could also be from a house that's long since perished, because there are like several houses that were like prominent houses from that era that are like gone, just completely destroyed. I mean, Tywin Lannister himself wiped out a famous house called the Rains. That's where the song "The Rains of Castamere" comes from.
Right, exactly.
He wiped out a great house, just completely killed everybody in it. So it's like, so she could be a Rain, for all we know. She could be anything in there, really. But like I said, it seems to, just by the nature of her being blonde, the nature of there being a dark secret seems to imply it might be connected to either the Targaryens or, there's supposed to be some association between the Starks of old and the first White Walker, like the Night King or whatever. There's like references in the fairy tales that Nan would tell Bran about the Night's King being a Stark of Winterfell that was turned into this White Walker. Right. So it could be somebody associated to him, and that's the dark secret she has, is about him. We don't know. All we know is the description of the character and the fact that this show is taking place around the time of the birth of the White Walkers.
Right, exactly.
So that's the Game of Thrones spin-off series. Last news piece we have is Disney's streaming service. They had announced before, and we talked about it before, that they were going to be doing a series of MCU-related shows, Marvel Cinematic Universe-related shows, that would actually feature the actors as they are in the movies. We knew that there was going to be a series about Loki. We knew there was going to be a series about Scarlet Witch. And recently we also heard that the actor who plays Vision, Paul Bettany, was going to be in the Scarlet Witch series as well.
Yeah, which is cool.
But now we have a possible third series in development there, which is going to focus on the relationship between Winter Soldier and Falcon, basically Captain America's best buds. And that the series would be written by Malcolm Spellman, who is the showrunner of Empire.
Yeah.
So that's going to be that could be an interesting one.
Yeah, it could be good. Could be good.
That's our news. Let's move on to The Good Place. We're talking about Season 3, Episode Y, A Fractured Inheritance. In this episode, we basically have a split with two different stories. As we've mentioned before in the past couple of weeks, the group has kind of a new mission where they're trying to kind of save other people from going to the bad place now that they've kind of resigned themselves to thinking that they're going to the bad place. They're trying to stop other people from going there. And in the last episode, we had Jason trying to save his father and kind of eventually failing and saving a friend instead. But now, in this episode, we have kind of a split with Eleanor finding out in the last episode that her mother was still alive and that she had faked her death. So Eleanor is going on the mission to save her mom from the bad place. And at the same time, Tahani is going off to deal with her relationship with her sister and try to save her sister from going to the bad place.
Yeah.
So starting off with Eleanor's story, which was like the bigger of the two. I like the backstory they gave for her, like why she faked her death, was that she bid $30,000 for a lunch date with Gene Simmons.
And she said they were like, that was the highest bid. The second highest bid was $28,998 less.
Yeah. So basically $200.
Yeah.
Somebody bid 200 and then you can just picture her mom raising her head and saying, 30,000!
Probably thinking nobody's going to be able to beat that when nobody was trying.
And then she, faked her death to get out of paying that money back. So they end up tracking her down. She's in a town, and she's still in Nevada, where Eleanor is from, in a town called Tarantula Springs, which is funny. Like, I guess Nevada's like they're, not quite as messed up as Florida, but it's still kind of a fucked up place that they make fun of on the show. Yeah, not quite as funny, like I said, as last season. We didn't get any moments like the Florida taxi cab scene, that we had last week. But we did see Eleanor's mother, and like Jason's father, Eleanor's mother is a lot like Eleanor. Uses some of the same expressions. The "you basic," for example. They had a whole "you basic" fight.
They had a whole "you basic." Yeah, she is actually like a lot like Eleanor. You see, like that's where Eleanor gets her personality from.
Mm-hmm. Which was interesting because we'd seen that before with Jason and his dad.
But what's interesting here is Eleanor finds her mother, but instead of what she expects, she finds her mother, she seems to be a good mother to her adopted daughter and a good wife to this guy she met at a bar. And this upsets Eleanor, right? Because Michael is all like, well, she might not need saving. She's doing a good job of saving herself. And Eleanor is bothered and disturbed by this. And we find
Eleanor's convinced that her mother is pulling a scam.
Yeah, is pulling a scam. And
she's searching the house looking for
a stash of money, because he says she always stashes money whenever she's planning to just bail, right? Mm-hmm. So she's searching, she picks up the daughter's teddy bear and she takes a knife to it and tells the daughter, she's like, oh, I'm just going to do some emergency surgery. Michael takes the bear away from her.
Yeah, that's the concern, is that her mom has been, hiding money and that she's going to run. She's obsessed with trying to track that down with all evidence pointing to that not being the case. she ends up finding out that indeed her mom is stashing money, but as her mom's saying, it's almost more like she has to do it to feel like she's safe somehow. Like she has to feel like she can bail. It's not that she is going to bail.
We reveal because Michael confronts Eleanor about her behavior, and Eleanor finally breaks down and reveals to Michael, that she is jealous because finally her mother is being the mother that she always wanted, but not for her,
Mm-hmm.
And
it's the idea that what she says is, if she can change to be a better mother, then that means that I wasn't worth changing for.
Yeah, I wasn't worth changing for. Really emotional moment in the episode.
Really strengthening the kind of father-daughter relationship between Michael and Eleanor as well.
Right. And Michael, in an attempt to comfort Eleanor, he just says, something like along the lines like, I wish I had something to say. He goes, I know I'm supposed to say something comforting here, but I'm stumped.
All of this is going down. Eleanor is, after that moment, is kind of accepting the possibility that, maybe her mother has indeed changed. We should note that the man that's in a relationship with Eleanor's mom is played by Andy Daly from Silicon Valley. His name's Dave, and he has this daughter from a previous marriage, and he's aware of all this information about...
when Eleanor confronts Dave with all this information about her mother and comes clean to him, Dave reveals that he already knew everything because Eleanor's mother told him. And that he's actually not chased off by it. He finds it exciting.
Yeah, she's kind of the element of his life he needs. Like, she's making him less boring, basically.
Right.
He's wearing a spiked watch wristband because of her.
Because of her. Yeah.
The best bit in this episode comes from him as well, which is him and Michael have been bonding through the episode as architects.
Yeah, because Michael tells him he's an architect, and he's like, I'm an architect too. So yeah, Michael and him have been bonding, and like the last bit is like hilarious. Oh, it's hilarious too because like Eleanor's mom, bragging about like her boyfriend's accomplishments, as an architect. He's like, he designed the new Hooters. Yeah.
It's all kind of like horrible stuff. Like they're going, and like later on, even they're exploring that with like Michael and him, where like they're like, this was actually the first Tudors to have a brick facade front, and
yeah,
talking on architectural terms, but
like at the end there, like Michael gives Dave some architect plans he drew up, and Dave is like, great, and then he's like, wait, you forgot the bathroom, and then and then Michael gets
all super defensive.
Michael's like, oh, of course, minor oversight. I totally forgot that.
I go to the bathroom by sitting down on a toilet too.
I go to the bathroom by sitting down on a toilet too.
Just as everybody else does. Like he's like doesn't quite understand the human experience from that angle. But yeah, so I mean that's kind of like the main story that's going on in the episode that's dealing with Eleanor and her mother. At the same time, you have another storyline going on in which Tahani is finally confronting her sister and trying to kind of save her relationship. And her sister, of course, if you don't remember, Tahani is like a rich heiress and kind of talented at everything, but she has a sister that's even more so, like in every way. It's like the sisters in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, okay.
Gamora
and
Nebula.
Nebula, yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I was thinking of, the relationship between Gamora and Nebula while it was going on. The idea that forced into competition constantly with each other. And even though one is super talented, she always feels like a failure next to her more talented sister who gets all the kind of credit. Even when she doesn't even do anything worth credit, she's getting credit. And this also ties back into we had seen Tahani's relationship with the one Hemsworth brother. What was his name? I already removed it from my show notes because his character is pretty much gone. But it's like the fake Hemsworth brother that felt like he was ugly and short because his brothers are so much more attractive and tall than him. But it was like this ridiculous standard, and that's kind of, you can see how Tahani was able to bond with him and have a kind of relationship with him because his relationship with his brothers is so similar to her relationship with her sister. Except her relationship with her sister has a bit more animosity to it, I think.
Yeah, well, like I said, a big part of Tahani's character stems from her inferiority complex with regards to her sister, right? A lot of Tahani's, you could say, like, that shapes Tahani's character completely, down to, like, her vanity, her need to name drop all her famous friends constantly. It seems like Tahani walks around seeming like she has to impress everybody she meets. Right? And I think that's due to her sister, who she's completely jealous of because everybody loves her sister more than her. So, like, because Tahani's inferiority complex with her sister, because everybody loves her sister more. And a big part for Tahani is, like, especially, like, her parents seem to favor her sister more than her. So in a lot of ways, this is, like, technically about Tahani trying to save her sister's soul, but it's, in a lot of ways, it's just trying, it's more about Tahani, like, reconciling these issues with her sister.
Well, I mean, that's what it's been for all of the family members in this, in these storylines. Yeah. It's the same thing with Eleanor and her mother, you know, it's about Eleanor coming to terms with the fact that she didn't get the mother she wanted, even though this mother is now being a mother to somebody else. That forces her to confront the fact that she didn't have the mother that she wanted. With Jason, it's with his father and his father not really being a father to him, being detached and unconnected in that way, just being a friend instead of an actual parent. So that's kind of what this whole direction's about. It's about kind of coming to peace with these past problems in their lives, or these fundamental things that make up who they became as people.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, Tahani's story is kind of funny because everything her sister does is seen as perfect. She's like making omelets for people and in an art gallery. It's considered like a performance art. And Tahani's like criticizing it, and everybody there is like, get out of the line, get out of the way. It's our turn.
Yeah.
There are these two German guys that are like constantly, every time like Tahani does something, they're like, and after her sister saved her life.
Yeah.
Which was like the whole thing, because like Michael saved her, but then her sister got
Michael,
credit for it.
Like, everybody gave her sister credit for it. So.
And then it's like there's even, you know, a part where Tahani had like thrown an egg at like a painting of an egg or something that Tahani's sister had done, and they see it and they're like, egg on egg, it's perfect, it's brilliant. It's so she's constantly getting credit, like even when it's just something like a stupid accident that didn't even have anything to do with her. But yeah, so you kind of get this aspect of their relationship, and finally they come down to a moment where Tahani is talking about her relationship with her sister and where she struggled with it. And she's reflecting back on her childhood growing up with her sister and the way her parents would like make them compete and like, whoever paints the best picture, it'll hang, you know, as we have a party to celebrate that painting. And the one who fails, the painting will be the kindling in the fireplace at that party.
Yeah.
So you get this idea of like how this kind of created this animosity between these sisters and how they weren't able to ever see each other as anything except rivals. And then with Tahani's sister being, you know, you could even say marginally more talented, like it just kind of created this massive gap between them.
It did. Once Tahani realizes this, she decides to let go of her animosity and forgive her sister.
Well, what she discovers is that her sister's paintings reflect the exact same emotion she was feeling.
Right.
She notices that these group of these large circles together are this unit of her mother and father, and then these two smaller images in each painting represent like her and her sister being like apart from each other and like, you know, at a distance from each other. And that's kind of like, it kind of sums up their whole relationship. It's kind of like a little aha moment when it happens, when she realizes that it isn't a portrait of boobs and smaller boobs, as Jason pointed out.
Yeah, Jason, like, they're two boobs. Some are smaller and some are further apart.
And Chidi, like, once Jason says that, that's the only way. He's all, what painting? You mean the boobs? He's like,
oh, sorry. As soon as Jason said that, like, I couldn't unsee it. I like Chidi in this episode because, like, Tahani sends Chidi to talk to her sister because she couldn't. And then, her sister goes up to Chidi and she says, like, your fears are now my fears. And, like...
Well, even before that, he said, like, his name. And she said, oh, that means, like, God is real, you know?
Yeah,
and he's
that
like,
means God is real.
Yes, it does. And
yes, it does. And she's like, your fears are now my fears. And Chidi just goes back to Tahani, and Tahani's like, oh, what'd she say? And she just said, my fears are her fears now. It's amazing. And I think Tahani grabs an axe and she marches towards her sister after that. And then immediately Chidi goes, okay, my fears are now my fears again.
Yeah, there's a lot of funny stuff in that exploration of these two sisters, but you can really see the kind of like how Tahani is the way she is in her relationship with her sister, and the flashback to their parents, you know, of course, like really like hyper illustrates that, and it again comes down to like that all of these people in the bad place, this group of 4, are basically all kind of products of their parents' dysfunction. It's the dysfunctional way in which their parents raised them that kind of led them into what they became. But this whole season, because the whole show is about ethics, of course, this whole season seems to be exploring the idea of like, of going beyond, what was done to you and accepting, like, you know, becoming your own person in spite of that, you know, and the idea of like reconciling, you know, for Jason, the fact that he didn't have like a real father figure in his life, that his father just wanted to be his friend instead. So he has to reconcile that. We haven't really gotten something with Chidi. The closest is like him having to break up with his girlfriend, but we haven't really gotten anything specific about him.
But we got a big hint that next episode might be Chidi-centric, since Michael drops another big bombshell to Eleanor at the end of this episode, because like Michael is like, well, I told you that there wasn't any other significant things in your life that I didn't tell you about already, besides your mother. And then he's like, technically, there is something about your afterlife, though.
It's something that he hadn't even thought of. It wasn't like he was holding it back from her. It's like it just hadn't occurred to him as being an issue until they were in a car together driving away from there, and she expressed the deepest sadness of the whole situation with her mom to her was the fact that she doesn't think anybody had ever told her that they loved her.
That they loved her, yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like Michael, it's like a revelation hits Michael smack dab in the forehead, you know? And he's like, oh, actually, I told you that, I told you all the information that was relevant for your life, but there was something in your afterlife that I didn't tell you. And one of the many loops that I created for you guys, you and Chidi fell deeply in love with each other, and you told him you loved him, and he told you he loved you. And that's kind of like the big cliffhanger ending of this week's episode.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So probably going to be some, you know, Eleanor trying to deal with that. Like, I don't know if she's going to just break it to Chidi right up front, or if it's going to be like something they're going to explore. They're going to go more into Chidi's backstory and what caused him to be the way he is, and how he's going to reconcile with that.
I think so, because we had the Jason episode. This episode was, Eleanor and Tahani. There's really only Chidi left from the group that we have to explore.
Also in this episode, they kind of covered some of the Jason, Janet stuff as well.
Yes, they did.
Because there were a few moments between Jason and Janet that kind of explored the idea that Janet might have to come forward about her feelings for Jason and what happened before. explore in their past as well, before all of the loops started in season 2.
Yeah, before all the loops. Because Janet still, like, holds feelings for Jason.
Yeah, that's been, like, mostly just a joke in, like, this season so far, like, little references to that. But in this episode, it's kind of presented.
It gets a little more serious, right?
Yeah. So it's something else they have to explore. They also have, you know, if that's exploring something that Janet needs to confront, then perhaps we're going to get something more that Michael needs to confront in the next episode as well. The episodes have mostly been divided up between kind of two storylines. So if the next storyline is going to be about, with the main plot being about Chidi and whatever he has to reconcile, well, in the background, Eleanor is dealing with the fact that she has this new knowledge about her and Chidi. Perhaps the B plot of the next episode is going to be something that Michael has to reconcile.
Right, exactly.
So that's pretty much it for this episode. Next week, we're going to continue our discussion of the show. But until then, here's what's coming up in the week ahead. So we're recording this on Saturday, November 3rd, but I'm still using kind of the format we have set up for when we regularly record. So on Friday, November 2nd, 2018, Homecoming came out on Amazon. House of Cards put out its final season on Netflix. And Mike Judge Presents Tales from the Tour Bus aired on Cinemax. Tomorrow, for us, as we're recording, Sunday, November 4th, 2018, Outlander comes to Stars back. Our Cartoon President Election Special 2018 airs on Showtime. That's the Stephen Colbert produced, like, parody of Trump.
Oh, nice.
It's an election special episode, and that's going to be, on November 4th. Then on Wednesday, November 7th, 2018, Click airs on Pop. And Thursday, November 8th, 2018, Baroness Von Sketch Show comes to IFC, and The Cry comes to Sundance Now. Then on Friday, November 9th, 2018, Beat comes to Amazon Prime, Patriot to Amazon Prime, Medal of Honor miniseries comes to Netflix. It's going to be like documentary/drama, like, you know, where they'll talk about things in a documentary fashion and then have something performed out, like, as a drama, like, you know what I mean?
Right.
That kind of format of show. And Room 104, which is an anthology series, comes back to HBO. That's like a week-to-week anthology, more like Black Mirror and The Twilight Zone, not like American Horror Story or something like that. But that's what's coming up in the week ahead. Until then, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Tyson Gifford. You can follow Will. He is at Voxel Hero. You can check out our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, as well as our site, thetotalscreen.com. You can subscribe to the podcast through any major podcast client like iTunes or Pocket Cast. And the entire backlog of our podcast is available on our YouTube channel. So thank you, everybody, for listening. Good night.
Good night.
If you would like to reach out to us and make a comment, send an email to contact@thetotalscreen.com. Stay tuned to The Total Screen for the very